Would you say drew you more, if one drew you more than the other, feminist studies or the center in its research plan? As institutions, their different roles and modes, targets, if you will.
It's hard to make that distinction because Crow was there first, of course, and by the time feminist studies became a real possibility on the agenda, the overlap in membership and the overlap of people who were engaged was so clear that it was hard to keep them separate. I mean, it was only temporally did Crow have priority, and therefore, in a sense, you say, well, Crow drew you first. But once feminist studies began to be a real possibility, and it was one in which I had been involved with from the beginning, it became more important to me institutionally because it raised issues about teaching, which I cared greatly about, teaching at Stanford. And it also raised issues about the importance of naming in a way that I took to be a very feminist factor. The big debate on whether to call it feminist studies or women's studies, which seems probably to an outsider, not you, I mean, but to some of the people who will be listening to your history, so odd. Why should anybody care? It was a major issue for us and for the university.
What were the differences depicted, and how did that struggle?
Well, the arguments, as I reconstruct them, and of course similar arguments have gone on in a lot of other places I've been part of, so I don't want to read those back into what happened in 77, although I'm sure you're skilled enough as an oral historian to know that that's always the problem. But as I recall, in the early days of the program, the arguments tended to be both principled and strategic. And most of the strategic arguments were on the side of women's studies, that it was a less threatening term than feminist studies, that feminist studies would be taken to be ideological as well as harsh and scary, and that it would raise all the issues about whether we ought to be having a program with a particular bent or commitment. It sounded partisan to people. It sounded like we were taking one side of a discussion instead of teaching generally. And there's something to that, but at a more fundamental level, I find it not persuasive. But the arguments made sense from the way we would be perceived by the university. Would we be accepted? Would we be taken seriously? Would we be given a chance to grow and flourish and to attract other adherents, or would we be seen as some kind of very strange
little splinter
group? In retrospect, it's probably important, as I think about it, that we were the ones who were having this discussion, and we were the ones who made the decision. I mean, nobody came in and told us, sorry, for the following reasons, you've got to be women's studies or you don't exist. The fact that we were being able to make the decision is probably in itself important. So the argument on the side of feminist studies was far more that it reflected what we thought we were about, that we were teaching a new way of envisioning traditional theory, literature, history, which was not just an account of what women had done or might do or would do, but was a real reworking of some of the traditional canons of scholarship and the substances of their work on the basis of a criticism which came from our feminist perceptions and commitment. And it would not have been, suppose gender studies had been a possibility then, I don't think we would have accepted that as a serious alternative at all, because it wasn't just that we were looking at women and men as two parallel entities which made us reject women's studies, but that we were assuming that what we were beginning to come to as both political and scholarly feminists committed to certain kinds of perceptions about the disadvantages and the oppression of women allowed for a fresh reading of a variety of texts, which was not captured by calling it women's studies.